we need people in the project team to look at delivery part of it. So if we've come up with things that we've identified and said, this is what our clients like, this is what they expect, and this should be what the proposition looks like, then the next question is equally, can our staff deliver it? What training do they need? What support tools, etc., do we need? And what are the operations, processes, products? So it's an evolution of the process, but it really starts with getting a very clear idea of what is the value proposition. And then the second part of that is the staff capability. How big is the team? Do we need to hire? What profile? What compensation, etc. And Zoom can certainly help you with that. But then that has the value proposition needs to be defined clearly for operations, technology, process, etc., to be able to then look at the delivery part of it. So that's kind of the high-level view, that it's a very detailed exercise, but it's based on customers' market, what they like, don't like, using design thinking methodology. But all of this is with us and me guiding your teams to be able to create that. So the benefit that we bring is that not only are we using design thinking as a methodology and training your teams to do it, but we're also guiding you from a market perspective, because we've done this numerous times, whether at VT Bank or at Citibank or other international banks, etc., but very much in the local market context with the customers that we're looking for. So this is absolutely not copy-paste from other banks just because they are doing it, so Techcombank is doing it, so we must copy that. No, we will take things from there that clients like. We will look at what clients don't like or don't find delivered quite as well and create our own. So that's the important point there in terms of the methodology and in terms of creating that yourself. So unlike other consultants who will tell you, you should do this, we should do that, we have global experience, etc., our focus is very much building it with you, and at the same time creating the confidence within your teams that you can keep applying the methodology of design thinking to anything that you design going forward. So that build, operate, transfer part is very important, but equally it's also that we will look at things like the business model, the revenue model, cross-selling, how do we generate revenue, etc., etc. So that's kind of a high-level view of what the process entails, but obviously there'll be a lot more detail behind it. Zoom, do you want to add anything to that? Sorry, just.
No, I think, yeah, I think it's a very brief about our proposal. So if Vân and Chang, do you have any question you can raise at me and Sandeep can make it more clearer about our proposal. Thank you.
So I see your proposal both about affluent and high net worth banking. So what is the key difference that you think you may offer MSB to between the two segments? And with the difference like that, which outcome could be the which like quality and quantity outcome that MSB can touch after we both like collaborate in these two branch?
So a couple of points that I'll use to answer that. That's a really good question. If you look at most banks or financial institutions, I think the approach would be that we have to get the affluent banking proposition right first. Unless you're a private bank, which you're not, because that is a very niche strategy. So the first part of it is that we look at affluent banking and define the proposition there. The next part of it would be high net worth in terms of how do we differentiate and create a different proposition for high net worth. But the first part is, let's get affluent banking absolutely right. Design the value proposition, look at what the delivery involves, what is the revenue model, et cetera, and then build the high net worth proposition on top of that. Because affluent banking will give you the bulk of your revenue and your growth. High net worth requires more work, and certainly the both defining what is different in high net worth and the delivery capability for high net worth needs more time. So I would recommend that we start with affluent banking, really get that done, and then look at high net worth as the next part of it.
One thing I want to add is that we can support MSB in recruitment and training the team for the affluent banking relationship IM. So I think it's very different because because we are the implemented team, action team. It's not like a consulting team, other consulting team, because we don't consulting only. We can support you in implementing what we suggest and what we agree to do when we build the plan and the strategy for the affluent and high net worth customer. Yeah, thank you.
I saw in the part phase market research, we will have about 30 days to analyze affluent banking market and competitor strategy benchmarking. So can you detail more in this phase what we will get and what the difference between the way that you survey or analyze among other banks and other competitors? Because we also have chance to work with other company to survey about the affluent client need. And I still wonder about 30 days and what we get after that.
So again, I'm glad you asked that, because it's a really important point in terms of creating the base for the design of the proposition. So two things. In the methodology for design thinking, what we're saying is that we will talk to actual clients and do interviews using design thinking methods. We will, so one group is MSB clients who are identified as affluent clients, and talking to them in depth to understand what they're looking for. The second part is to talk to clients in the market who are not MSB clients to understand what they like from, whether it's Techcombank, VP Bank, Vietcombank, whatever. We identify which competitive bank clients we want to talk to in the affluent space. And the third part of it is doing those in-depth interviews with the RMs across both MSB as well as the market. So where it's different from traditional market research is that we're not doing a competitive survey. We're not mapping. Of course, we will do all that desktop research to compare, and you, I'm sure you have some of that work done already, to be able to compare from their websites, their propositions, what they offer, etc., etc. This is more in-depth. It's really understanding the experience. It's understanding what customers like, what they don't like, and why, so that we have a much deeper understanding of what are the things that work, don't work, that we need to look at in building into our own proposition, in addition to the desktop research and what we gather from, just visiting them, looking at their websites, looking at people who work there, etc. So this is really in-depth, talking to different groups of clients, but also talking to the RMs to understand from both the RM perspective as well as the MSB client and clients that you want to acquire as part of this proposition. So that's why it takes time, because each of these interviews needs to go into that depth, and then we need to analyze from those interviews what are the common themes that we find about what people like from those discussions, and then also putting it all together between the three groups. Does that answer your question?
Can you detail more about the customer profiles that we will get after the research? Because we also have many chance to work with the EY, McKinsey. They also did many research on the client, especially the affluent segment.
So can you share?
And can you get some comments on the
Go ahead.
the affluent market in general? Now, how do you think about the way that Techcombank or MB Bank do with their affluent segment?
So one, I don't know what other consultants have already given you, and I'm not sure where you are in terms of utilizing that. So, but if there is some work that is already done, then we will not redo that work. So we need to be able to see what you already have and what you've done with it to be able to understand that. But where our approach is quite different is that we go in depth into what customers are saying. It is based on competition, but it's more in depth than, unless you've done that already, in which case we can look at what has already been done, and we can spend less time on that phase, or not have to do parts of that phase. But I really can't comment till we have an idea of what you've already done in terms of research. So do you have detailed research, in-depth customer interviews using methods like design thinking or any other method that talks to 10, 15 of your own customers, 15 to 20 other customers, that has detailed interviews with RMs from MSB as well as with competitor RMs that you're looking to hire, to understand from those 4 different target audiences what the affluent banking proposition currently looks like, what works for clients, what doesn't work, what the RMs find difficult to deliver, and what training and other gaps that they have, and equally what strengths do they have.
Okay, so can you share your view with your experience on the way that Techcombank or MB currently do with their affluent segment?
I think my opinion is not the point here. The point is that it's the customer opinion that we're looking for. I can tell you my own opinion. I don't bank with Techcombank right now, but I can, as part of the work, and Zoom can comment as well. There are things that I can tell you today across banks that are a problem with affluent banking. Let me give you an example. Just today, I was trying to solve my own problem. It's not a Techcombank example, but I have a bank account with Citibank Singapore for many, many years. It's actually a private client account, so it's high net worth. Now, I used to work for Citibank for many, many years, so I know people there. I know the CEO of the Citibank Singapore. My problem is my RM left 6 months ago to join DBS Bank, private bank. I get no service from the new RM. It is like completely different from what I used to do before, the kind of service, portfolio reviews. Today, I'm trying to transfer money to my own account in India, and the system is not working. I have no response. So my point of telling you that story is that even with highly developed international banks, the problem is not what you say on the website. The problem is not what you claim as dedicated relationship manager. That means nothing. What dedicated relationship manager means is what do customers in Hanoi expect from their clients. So when they have a problem, what is the kind of delivery that they need? What is the kind of support that they need? In our sales and service model, if the RM is essentially responsible for selling insurance or investment products or deposit products, who takes care of the service part? So how do we design our structure to make sure that sales and service is delivered in line with the customer expectation? Other than that, there are lots of things. I mean, in VP Bank, we were one of the first to introduce a lounge in Hanoi at the airport, for instance. Those kinds of things are easy to copy for anyone. It is the delivery model, the sales skill, and the sales capability. Those are the things that you really need to work on to make sure that the proposition really works and you get the long-term success along with client growth. But the model, if you look at Techcombank, you look at the other banks, it is pretty standard. It is, we offer you 5 different things. You know the answer to that. I don't have to tell you. But that's not the difficulty in affluent banking or sales and service. It is how you actually develop that proposition and define it internally so that your salespeople and service people are trained to actually deliver that experience.
Yeah, I think one thing that if we can cooperate together, if you can share with us the survey or the market research from the EY or McKinsey, we will look inside it and we can see what we can use the survey before and add with our deep research, so we can combine it. So if you think that it will make more clearer, I think it's better, and we can reduce the main day or something like that, because you know that our approach is very different. That we use the BOT model, that we build, we operate with you, and after that we transfer all the knowledge and all the research into from our side to your side, so you can operate your own after we can do together. So that is a very big difference from our approach with other consulting, as I know and Sandeep know. Yeah, from the overview of the priority markets in Vietnam right now, I think that it is a new, very competitive, not only now, but it can make it more longer in the future, because so many banks right now, they approach the high net worth customer and affluent also. You can see that talking about the lounge at the airport. Some days ago, Techcombank has launched a new lounge at Nội Bài Airport, and maybe next month at Tân Sơn Nhất Airport. So it means that very competitive market. If we do nothing, we will lose. We will be the loser very soon. So if you can combine between the how can I say, the expert and the practitioner like us, you can be the mover, and we can go ahead and we will be the new competitor with the other banks that they have the current RM or affluent segment right now. So that's what I'm going to add on after Sandeep. Yeah.
Let me also give you a couple of specific examples, right? I think Zoom has talked about the lounge, and so we're talking about features. The features are very easy to study. I'm sure you know that, but typically it is a dedicated RM. It is based on what kind of card you get. There's a special lounge, priority service, separate hotline, all those kinds of things, special pricing, benefits, etc. Take Techcombank specifically is an example because we used to do work with them when I used to be working for Manulife on the insurance front. Techcombank moved from a banker referral model to a direct model where their own staff took on selling directly on insurance. In each of those models, whichever model you choose as an example, the execution of the model is what you need to focus on. So what happens in a referral model? Who's responsible for lead generation? Who's responsible for closing? If there's a service problem, who's responsible? Most importantly, who's responsible for cross-selling after that, making sure that the product works if there are issues with claims, etc. Although most life products, the claims are minimal. So it's really, there's a lot of detail that you don't see from the outside in terms of how this actually works and the quality of the delivery, etc. So in the design, we're not just talking about what you see on the outside, because that is easy to compare. The question is, based on what clients are telling us and what you see on the outside, how do we match the two to create that delivery capability inside NSB, which is what makes the difference in terms of future growth.
Okay, Vân and Trang, do you have any more question?
In job proposal, I see that RM is a very important part to contribute to the old affluent model as well as the high net worth segment model. Can you detail more on the RM training section and what the key element that you think is the key success for the RM in affluent model of current Vietnamese bank?
So one, that's a really important question, but it's also quite broad. So let me try and break it down and give you some examples, right? I think a lot of Vietnamese banks and even banks internationally have a typical set of things that they offer. So some of those offers are lounge, this, that. But let's talk about RM specifically. Everyone says dedicated relationship manager. What does that mean? So what is the actual service that you get provided through a dedicated relationship manager? Are they available 24/7? Can you call them whenever you need them? That needs to be actually broken down into a service delivery offering. So let me give you an example. When we worked on insurance, how is the referral handled from, if you're working on a referral model along with the insurance company? So how is the RM going to work with an insurance specialist? What is the profile of the insurance specialist? What is the kind of leads they need to provide? What is the mechanism of the leads? It's really building the RM experience based on what we promise to the clients in a lot more detail. So for instance, a specific number of leads that need to be referred for bank assurance, as an example. What profile of clients are those? How many number of leads? What kind of introduction mechanism? Is it a joint meeting? Is it a joint Teams call, etc., between the insurance specialist and the RM? Who does the actual introduction based on the client profile? And who's responsible then for solving any problems that come up with, say, underwriting, medicals, if they're required, etc., etc. The reason why I'm going into that level of detail is to say that many banks don't always have that level of detail. And that is what actually delivers the customer experience in the sale. So by doing this process, what we're going to do is talk to the clients and say, what do they expect from an insurance sales process when they're looking for products? What is a dedicated RM actually mean? That an RM is available full time, and if the RM is not available for some reason, there is a service team that will support them. That it's almost like creating an SLA to say that they will get back to you, or they're constantly available, or you, whatever it is that we're defining as a service expectation, both for the customer as well as for the RMs and the sales staff, so that everyone is clear in terms of what is expected both by the customer as well as by the internal staff. It's getting down to that level is one part of it. How do you operationalize the relationship management process, and how do you break down what a dedicated RM actually is supposed to do, and what are they trained for, and how are they supported to do that? That's one part of it. The other part of it is what is the training they need for insurance. Often they don't know how to introduce. I mean, we did some work with a different bank in Vietnam, and typically the kind of issues that I faced these at VP Bank when we were implementing insurance, but at other banks as well with Manulife, is that often salespeople are under pressure to meet the target to do insurance referrals or insurance sales. I'm just using insurance as an example because we've done so much work on it. But they don't know how to do it. They don't know which clients to target. They don't know how to convince the client. They don't have the confidence because they haven't been trained. Things like that is what we will get into the details of building that based on the feedback from the salespeople as well as from the client. And that's the design that we're talking about in the build, operate, transfer model, that we can say, yes, there's a dedicated RM, but what does that actually mean from a service delivery standpoint? Does the call center and contact center understand that? Does operations understand that? Does that mean that we will get back if they have a query and solve it within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, same day, whatever? It's defining the details of the RM experience, the service experience, and the support staff to deliver that for the client, but also the training and the certification, and how do these processes work for wealth management products, especially because wealth management products need support and guidance from other people like the insurance company or the wealth management asset management company, etc., etc. Or if it's large loan transactions for SME type of clients, how does the RM work with the SME department to do a loan transaction, for instance? Those are the kinds of things that we need to work on in the details to say, this is not just about dedicated RM. Everyone talks about dedicated RMs in Vietnam. They talk about it around the world, which is why I gave you a personal experience. Citibank has been doing wealth management for years. They claim to be one of the best in Singapore, but the actual experience is poor. And as a result of that, quite frankly, I'm looking at shifting my business to DBS, because once I lose my RM and he's moved, the experience is really bad. So that level of detail is what we're looking at in terms of designing with this experience and breaking down those statements. The other part of it is easy, because when you say, I will give you a platinum world card, that's straightforward. There is no difference in that definition is very clear to everyone. It's the biggest part of it is what is the RM experience, what is the sales and service experience, and what are the skills as well as the tools required for them to be able to deliver whatever we promised to the client.
I also want to share with you one of our difficulty that we met currently in our service, that we have many RMs, so that we cannot control the service quality, because as you mentioned that the dedicated RMs play an important role to link between the very copycat product with the customer. So we can do many training sessions, but how can we standardize the service quality as well as the way that we control the RM to obey our service quality as well as our standard?
That's a really important point, Van, because again, I'll use can use different examples, but let me explain going back to the insurance example with detail. So interestingly, when we started partnering for VP Bank's affluent proposition with AIA, one day we got a call from the AIA CEO at that time to say, the whole project is delayed because we haven't been able to complete the training for the RMs on time. And mainly what the insurance company training head of L&D was saying, sales training team was saying that the branches aren't releasing RMs to attend the training. So when we called our regional heads in the branch network to say AI is saying that they're delayed because the regional heads and the branch managers cannot release people in time to meet the schedule, you get a different answer and they blame the insurance company. This is very normal, right? How do we ensure that something is done? So for instance, I go back to my Leeds example. When I was CEO of Manulife Philippines, when I first started off in my first week, I was talking to my insurance regional heads for different regions because they had about 400 branches, China Bank in the Philippines. And one of the first things they said was, oh, we don't get enough leads, right? That's why it's difficult to meet our sales targets. So I said, okay, if we don't get enough leads, let me make a list of things that I will discuss with the retail banking head and the CEO of the bank. And they have a list as well from the bank's point of view as to what help they need. So tell me, how many leads have you agreed or do you want per branch or insurance specialist? And they said, we need more. I said, okay, but if I have to ask the bank for more, what is the agreement? Is the current number 3, 4, 5 per day, per week, per month? And now we want to increase it to 10. What is it? And then we discovered that there is no clear understanding across each branch as to what the leads mean. There was no SLA to say we are supposed to give 5 leads a month for gold branches. We are supposed to give 10 leads a month for loan customers. Nothing, or 100% referral for loan customers. So the first step of making sure that we have consistent delivery with RMs is to create like an SLA, which details what a dedicated RM actually means. It's like a detailed job description to say that your job is to refer 5 clients a month for insurance. You have to refer 100% of your loan customers for life protection for insurance. Your cross-sell ratio for World Credit Card should be at least 35, 40, 50%, whatever that number is. So the first step is actually working with the team to break down what a dedicated RM is supposed to do and what that actually means from a customer experience standpoint. And we're doing it, remember, in the design thinking method, we're approaching it from the customer perspective as well as from the RM perspective. So we're taking both into account. Because otherwise the RM might come back and say, oh, you designed this with Zung and Sandeep, or you designed it with Ernst & Young, but you never consulted us. We can't actually do what you're asking us to do, or we don't have the skills or the training, etc. So we are co-designing this with them to say, this is the client expectation. This is what the client expects from a dedicated RM. And then we are working with them to identify what they will do, how they will do it, and where they need what support from operations, call center, whatever it is. So you have a detailed document that describes what a dedicated RM actually means in terms of sales, service, etc., etc. Now, the next part of that is, so what training do they need? What resources and support do they need to actually deliver that? The third part of that is, and you're rightly asking, is once that is communicated to everyone, then it's a question of making sure that it gets done. And there are various ways of doing that. So the supervisor of that team needs to make sure that that is done, because that's the agreed process. Secondly, you can run surveys with clients to check after a certain experience as to what their experience was. They can give you a rating, etc., etc. And the third part of it is that we have to look at both positives, reinforcement, as well as disciplinary action if it's not done. So for instance, if someone doesn't meet consistently what they're supposed to do in terms of client experience, etc., then we have to take action against it. So on the positive side, you support it with sales contests, with service awards and recognition to say, this is someone who is consistently, or this team is consistently following whatever the dedicated RM proposition is. But when you find that it's not being delivered, then you have to identify it and take action. And part of it could be training and coaching. But the other part of it then is that this has to be done, or you will hold back incentives, commissions. There are various ways of dealing with it. But you need, firstly, a clear understanding of what something means. What does the dedicated RM mean? What are their roles and responsibilities? Secondly, we need to give them the entire training and the support to be able to deliver that experience. And the third thing is we have to actually then look at implementation, both positive as well as making sure that the discipline is maintained. I mean, just think about it, right? In every service industry, and this is not just a problem with NSB, it's a problem, as I told you, with my own example with Citibank, but also in the companies that I work for, where even if I was the leader, there were people who didn't follow it. But if you look at other industries, for instance, those are very strict guidelines. So if you fly on Vietnam Airways, there is a dedicated service offering. You know you will get a meal or you won't get a meal. If you know that if you fly business class, you get a certain level of experience. Those are clearly defined things, and we have to move to those kinds of defined things where it's clear to our people and our teams as to what that client experience means. So whether it's airlines, whether it's a hotel experience, whether it's a car or a motorcycle that you buy, you know what after-sales service you're going to get. It's the same thing here. It's not principles that are completely new, but in banking, they haven't been implemented so far, or aren't always consistently implemented. But that's what makes the difference when you're able to deliver consistency across your proposition. Does that help?
A part of training, I think the way that we control the the way we control the service quality, for example, the system, the sales system, the tracking, the reporting system, and many other components to help not only for the sales to manage their portfolio, the demand of the clients, as well as for the clients that have to manage their portfolio. So what do you think about the other components? For example, system data, the role of these components to the affluent model.
Those are very, very important one. So let me again give you an example from a different bank where we started off saying that, and I'll use an actual example to talk about the question that you asked about system support and data. So take, for instance, we had in one of the banks that we had said that there has to be an annual portfolio review. So an annual portfolio review had certain steps that were defined, that the statement was sent annually, looking at the performance of the products, etc. And the RM was supposed to do a joint meeting with the client, either face-to-face in a branch or through Teams or whatever tool, to be able to go through that portfolio review. And it was also an opportunity for cross-sell. So system data, for instance, every branch was then sent a list of clients 1 month in advance, and later it became 2 months in advance, so that they could plan their appointments well in advance to do the portfolio review after the annual statement was sent. So that's one way of integrating system control and tracking. So as you send leads to different branches or different relationship managers, there is a definition of that list, in this case for portfolio review, to be sent. The second part of it, there was an agreement that each portfolio review had to be done within 30 days of that statement being sent. So it's like an SLA. So you can track through the system as to, and depending on the kind of systems that you have, if you're using things like Salesforce or Oracle, etc., or Microsoft Dynamics, depending on the tool, all of these can be tracked, right? And depending on how integrated your systems are, whether the customer calls the RM, sets up the appointment, all of that can be tracked from a system perspective. So that is really, really important. But system alone is not good enough. Someone has to then call the client afterwards, like the branch manager or the head of the affluent center, or someone from a separate team in service, to do a sample and say, someone was supposed to do the annual portfolio review with you. What was the quality of the experience? The other part of it, of the process like a portfolio review, is, of course, it is client service and making sure that they understand the products that they bought and the performance of the investment part of that product. But it's also an opportunity for cross-selling. So you can see it from the data as to whether the cross-selling was achieved. You have comparative data across RMs. You can classify that data and look at, someone has a much higher cross-sell ratio than someone else. Why? Is it a training problem? Is it because they didn't contact the client, etc.? And there is client satisfaction. So you're looking at 3 or 4 different things to be able to and manage it through a systems approach, where who the client, who the RM is supposed to talk to is organized by the system. Whether they do it or not, depending on how your systems and your sales tools are integrated into your system, will tell you that. Because if it's fully integrated, then you should be able to see from a sales opportunity going into an appointment and into a final meeting, and post the meeting, you'll be able to see sales and cross-sell ratio, and all of that will be generated through the system. Now, if you don't have a system that's fully integrated, then some parts of that you have to do manually. And part of that is for your center head to be able to look at that through reports, etc. But yes, we can set system metrics for all of these things, and whatever, depending on how integrated your systems are, you can track all that centrally from a systems perspective, or you can track part of it, and then the other part of it you have to do some kind of manual intervention from the center heads or from a separate team to be able to validate that.
Hello.
Okay, got your point. Let with Chang whether she has any question.
Alright, regarding to the wealth management, actually, as I once said with Mr. Dũng, one of the our gap in the decision that we have made to whether we can implement the wealth banking yet or not, is the capability of making and building the wealth product and wealth solution for the customer. So from your experience, what do you think that you may bring to us when you collaborate with us in the field of building the wealth solution and building the wealth product for the customer?
So a couple of things. One is a lot of wealth products are not typically, if they are banking products, then they are designed within the bank itself. So we've got to separate it into fee-based products and banking products. I presume you're not talking about banking products here. You're talking about wealth management as in insurance, brokerage, as well as asset management, etc., right?
Can you repeat?
Yeah, my question is, when you say wealth management products, you're not talking about banking products. You're talking about insurance, investments, brokerage, those kinds of products, correct?
Yeah. All the solution that you may bring to our customer.
Yeah. So typically, if we go back to VP Bank, and that was a long time ago, now there are lots more options in terms of different product providers for that. One part of it is making sure that you have the right product providers, whether it's for wealth management products or brokerage or for the asset management companies in terms of the tie-ups itself. The second part of that is product development within that. And again, where this process is useful is that when we look at insurance, for instance, we will do a comparison of the insurance products that are being offered to high net worth clients and affluent clients by other banks to be able to see if we have a gap with our own insurance products. So part of that is a gap analysis to say, what products do we need that are working in other banks that may not be working so well, or we don't have those. So this process will help identify those gaps. That's one. Two, it will identify opportunities through that gap process as to whether we have an exclusive partnership, as many of the banks do for insurance, or we work with different asset management or other product providers. And that gap analysis then helps us to identify the areas where we need to start talking to other people to be able to add to that product range. But that's really the process. It's a question of identifying firstly the gaps, and that is part of that market. The deep dive into understanding the market as to where do we have gaps versus other product providers, and what are the options in terms of how we may look at solving those gaps. Is it an exclusive partnership? Is it looking for new providers, asking our current providers to create new products because our clients are looking for those, or they're working for Techcombank or some other bank, etc. So it's a combination of those two. Is it that do we have a provider today and we need to then work with them to create a new product? Because for things like insurance, a new product takes time. It takes between the design process as well as getting the approvals for launching a new product takes a fair bit of time. Whereas with other structures like brokerage and other wealth products, it may not take that much time, but we might have to find new providers. So that's part of the gap analysis that we need to do based on both what clients are telling us as well as what RMs are telling us, which is why that in-depth interview process right at the beginning that we talked about on the proposal is absolutely critical. That's stuff that I'd be very surprised if Ernst & Young is doing that, or BCG or McKinsey is doing that level of detail. But that's the kind of work that we will need to do in those 30 days. And that's the output that you will get to be able to then act upon it. Did I answer your question, Chang?
Yeah, thank you. I just have one more concern, like in the
Sure.
I see that for both affluent banking and wealth banking management, you offer like the period of the project range from like 3 or to 6 months. But as Ms. Ben once mentioned, the beside building the capability of the RMs, there are many other things about the systems and the tool that we will have to build that will take time. So which could be like the beside the philosophy or methodology, which will be the real outcome that can like turn into the thing that we may take after the project. I think I say, for example, one tool for SIM, or like one or any other thing that we may measure by the quantity outcomes.
So I think a couple of things there, because that's a level of detail that is really important. But Chang, at this stage, what we've sent is a broad proposal. So at this stage, the next step of this exercise, let's assume we decide to go ahead, is to actually arrive at a detailed scope of what this project would actually involve. Right now, it's a high-level scope, and it's a broad scope of saying this is what we can do and this is how it will work. We need to then break it down into short-term, medium-term, and longer-term, and then decide on who does what. Which part you want us to help you build, operate, transfer. And you might say system development might take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. Or buying a new system might take much longer. And that you might choose to do yourself. So in that case, that would be out of scope as far as we're concerned. But typically, what we would do is to look at deliverables in different phases, look at deliverables where you need our help or involvement to help create that capability and to deliver it and to test it. And then there are others when we get into detailed scoping that you might say, oh, buying a new system is a purely internal decision that we can do on our own. Or you might say, we want your input into the system selection to look at it from a functional overview as to whether it supports the kind of functions that we're talking about, or what one was asking about in terms of implementation. How do we make sure that delivery gets implemented? So those kinds of things, we may look at the scope of the system, and if you want us to. So that is the next level of detail, to be able to define the scope from NSB's perspective and for us to do it jointly. And then we can address some of those questions. And in certain areas, if we don't have the skills and the expertise, we'll tell you that that's out of scope for us. It's like what Zoom was saying, right? If you want to hire RMs and you need help, that's something that Zoom can help with. We can help with. If you need help with training, we can. If you want pure systems evaluation, that's not a skill that we have. But if you want the skills functional definition, then certainly we can work with you as to what does an sales and service system for an RM need to look like functionality wise, not architecture or system capability wise. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. Miss Wen, any question? So thank you for spending time with us today. So after all the sharing and the question from Brisbane, now we will report to our internal leaders, and then I will inform any information that's through Mr. Dung, maybe next week. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's well. Thank you both for your time, and I'm really glad you asked deep questions in terms of details and execution, because I think the way and I particularly like that because you're talking about the practical issues. You're not talking about how do we design a proposition, because that's easy to define. The toughest part of banking is not designing; it's actually implementing. So the design has to be realistic in terms of implementation and looking at ways in which we can make sure that whether it's the RM experience, whether it's customer service, that we're actually able to do what we're saying, and we find ways in which that we can actually measure it and keep track of it. So yeah, I hope you find it useful. Would love to be able to work with you to help create this and to manage it. So looking forward to your feedback. Thank you, Chang. Thank you, Wan.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your informative question, answer, and proposal. We
Yeah.
will report to our manager and then feedback to you within next week. Thank you very much for your time.
Come on in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Vân.
thank you.
Thank you, Trang. Yeah. See you later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rồi, chào các bạn.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Chào.
Bye bye.
Dạ vâng, em chào các anh chị.